Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Whenever you're listening to this podcast, we got a great episode here today for you. At the Cannabis Minority Report podcast here at the National Cannabis Industry Association. I am Mike Lomuto, the DEI manager at the NCIA. I'm joined by my co-host today, Kay Villamin, who is also the chair of the State Regulations Committee, and we have two amazing guests in honor of Asian American Pacific Islander Month, or Heritage Month, Ophelia Chong and Frank Louie. So going to be a great conversation today. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. It's also, unfortunately, the last episode of our season 4. Season 4 has been a great season. It's been awesome to be here with everybody. To be quite frank, we're a little bit up in the air for how season 5 is going to be and go. Some changes here happening at the organization. So we're going to close season 4 out with a bang, and then we will be in touch with all of our listeners as far as how season 5 is going to go. So with that said, as we start every single week, we're going to start out with some NCI announcements and news, followed by the non-NCI news, and then we will jump right into the conversation with Frank and Ophelia here. So the things that I want to talk about today as far as NCIA goes is this was a pretty intense couple weeks. I just got back off the road with the Equity Workshop Tour. We did 4 workshops: Chicago, Detroit, Jersey City, and Brooklyn. And then followed that up, of course, with Lobby Days last week in Washington, D.C. We had our DEI delegation out there. We had brought some of the best leaders in the social equity space in cannabis out there with us as part of that contingency. We had about, I think there was about 100 of our members were there as citizen lobbyists. And so it was just a really great experience. So with that said, the workshop, I did take down some notes as far as the things I wanted to make sure to talk about here. So first of all, I thought that this was an amazing series. I think the thing that really stuck out to me the most was just how important it was for people to be able to get together in intimate networking settings. So the ability to sit down with structure and intimacy and have really high level conversations in a very focused amount of time. So I thought that, it really showed to me that it's something that our industry is definitely in need of, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do more of this. Speaking of continuing to do more of this, we're looking at doing the next tour in the fall. So looking to do the same cities and considering some new cities to add. I know, Minneapolis is a possibility, Baltimore is a possibility, Boston's a possibility. We've also been asked to come to Trenton in New Jersey. So there's definitely some options for what we could do next. And we will, like always, crowdsource the decision, figure out like who wants us to be where and make sure there's enough folks in each place to go. So that said, a couple other things that stuck out to me, I think, that are really important here is the need for team building and partnering. That was a takeaway from all 4 workshops, was that, the conversations were about anything from whether it was capital raising, navigating municipalities, understanding how to work, what you need to do as far as metric and things like that once you get your license, or even before you get your license, what to be prepared for. But the big takeaway, I thought, was how much everybody realized, had that aha moment of, I really need to build a team. I really need to build a better team. I need to build a team with more intention. And that means internal as well as external, right? External, if it's the lawyers and the accountants and the insurance and so on and so forth. Internal, meaning your different business partners and putting better attention into that. And also what it means to partner, which can often mean partnering with other businesses and figuring out how to do things collaboratively. We talk so much about collaboration in this industry, but what we constantly find is people not actually doing it properly. And not putting the proper attention and time and energy into it. So that was, I think, my big takeaway from the workshops was, one, the need for more intimate type settings like that, and then 2, really the big takeaways. We need to be focused more on what it means to build a team, and that's going to be what leads us towards success. I do want to thank all of our sponsors that helped make this possible. This was really a collaborative and team effort, not only from the sponsors, but the partner organizations, as well as the speakers and the facilitators of the roundtables, the regulatory agencies who sent representatives and made sure that we had dynamic conversations with those present and the attendees. So really a great all-around experience. And then that led into Lobby Days. And Lobby Days was pretty, amazing, I thought. I thought that it was really interesting to see how we all came together, right? I mean, you have 100 and something people coming from all over the country, all different aspects of the industry. And at the end of the day, what are we doing there? We're all lobbying for the same thing, right? We're lobbying for, of course, safe banking. the 280E reform, things of that nature, as well as just informing our Congress people and our senators and their offices, of course, what it means that we're now, this is an industry. This is not just simply a cottage industry, but it's an industry that's growing, and that small businesses, Main Street businesses, social equity businesses, all these different businesses within the industry, we're legitimate, and we are really looking to build something long lasting. And I thought that the conversations we had, whether it was with offices that weren't as keen or whether it was offices that were super supportive, in each case, they all needed to know more information from us, and they needed us to be there showing up. And so that's my plug for, if you are thinking about coming next year, start thinking about it now. Start putting it on your calendar now. Spoke with somebody that sees Lobby Days at NCIA and BizCon in Vegas as their two big events for the year. I would say that, if that's not maybe your two top priorities and you got a third or a fourth, that's fine. But I definitely want to encourage everybody to make that Lobby Days one of their top priorities, because I think that it really was eye-opening to me just how much influence we can have there because of the kinds of conversations that are there. I mean, the reality is that these staffers, they're not super up on cannabis most of the time, right? And so us being there in person, relating direct stories about our experiences in the industry, I think is really impactful. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on all of that. Make sure, let's see, any notes here that I have? Nope. We're going to go ahead and hand this off to Kay, because I know, Kay, you have a couple great stories for us today on the news. So what do you got for us?
Thanks, Mike, and happy Monday to everyone. So, two headlines for today. First one starting with psychedelics and the federal agency announcing $1.5 million in funding for research on psychedelics to treat drug addiction. And so, a top federal health agency is soliciting proposals for a series of research initiatives that's meant to explore how psychedelics could be used to treat drug addiction, with plans to provide $1.5 million in funding to support these relevant studies. So, there's, as public interest has grown in the therapeutic potential of psychedelics, the National Institute on Drug Abuse this week published 3 notices of funding opportunities for research to better understand how drugs like psilocybin and ayahuasca could help with substance use disorders. And, while we're here for cannabis, there's definitely crossover with the plant medicine and psychedelics such as psilocybin and ayahuasca and cannabis. So while all these 3 notices focus on the same overall objective, one would focus on the mechanisms of psychedelics, while the others would need to involve clinical trials with human subjects. So the agency is particularly interested in a better understanding of the types of neurobiological and network changes in the brain that yield to improve cognitive and emotional regulation and sustained behavioral change that's associated with administration of psychedelics. It was emphasized that for this type of research, it would be necessary to utilize modern neuroimaging and behavioral analytic tools to really illustrate the changes that are elicited by certain psychedelics. So in simpler terms, the agency really wants to learn how psychedelics works on a mechanistic level. Other studies have shown that substances like psilocybin hold significant potential in treating addiction, and there's ongoing clinical trials to further substantiate that. But there's still a lot of knowledge gaps in that fundamental question of how does it work. So, the agency, it plans to distribute 4 awards that totals $1.5 million in funding collectively in the 2024 fiscal year. And so if you want to apply, eligible applicants include universities, nonprofit organizations, for-profit businesses, and state and local governments and federal agencies. So that's the first news of the day.
And what agency was that again, Kay?
That is the National Institute on Drug Abuse.
Okay, got you. Was it NIDA or something like that? NIDA or something like that?
NIDA, yep.
Yeah, got you. Cool. Awesome. No, thanks for bringing that. What else you got for us?
Yeah, so more regional news. So just on Thursday, the Minnesota House voted 73-57 to legalize adult use cannabis. It's the proposal to compromise between the 2 respective legislation bills that's already passed by the House and the Senate. So this bill allows Minnesotans 21 and older to buy up to 2 ounces of flour, 8 grams of concentrates, and up to 800 milligrams worth of edible products at a time, and they could possess the same amounts in public. Minnesotans could also grow up to 8 cannabis plants with no more than 4 flowering at a time. So the bill is a compromise between versions that were already passed by the House and the Senate. It includes a 10% tax on sales and also sets possession limits in homes at 2 pounds, the highest among states that have approved the reforms. And so the measure also creates an office of cannabis management. So it creates a control board which would oversee licensing of medical, adult use, and hemp-derived products. It would also include automatic expungement of misdemeanor cannabis convictions and establishes another committee to consider expungement of felony level crimes. So if approved by the Senate and signed by the governor, which he has promised to sign, the cultivation and possession would be legal this August 1st.
Wow. Wow. So, assuming that goes through, it sounds like we do have to maybe head up Minneapolis on the equity workshop tour, because that's exciting stuff. Minnesota's been interesting with the way that they've been handling beverages. I think that's been something it's been fascinating. I kind of want to get out there. So, do you know if under this they would have, like, would there be dispensaries, or would it be kind of like what we've seen with some of the beverages where it's kind of allowed to be in mainstream? Do you know about that or not? Or is that still something that's farther down the line?
Yeah, I think it's not really clear yet. Right now, it's just purchase and possession.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. Well, no, thanks for those stories. So look, let's go ahead and jump right into to the conversation here with Frank and Ophelia. Definitely want to make sure we get to that today as soon as possible. The way I want to kind of set this up is I do want to thank Ophelia and Frank on a personal level. When I reached out, it's been a couple years ago now, I think. I was actually working with Kay at the time, and we still are working in the background on putting together some kind of an Asian cannabis alliance. It's something we've been developing and working on, but we've decided not to launch yet because we have way too many other things going on at this point in time. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I reached out to Ophelia, when I reached out to Frank, the amount of support and just really the honest feedback as well as the supportive feedback was really invaluable to me. I think that one of the things that I believe in strongly is mentorship. And in the cannabis space and amongst Asians especially, I think mentorship is something that's really rooted in our culture and our history. And so reaching out to Frank, reaching out to Ophelia, two people who came very high recommended and who honestly, especially early on, I was a little bit, intimidated by the conversations. I was like, hey, like you guys have done a lot already in the space for Asians and for cannabis. But the humility that I was met with and just the support I was met with was really meant a lot to me. And so it's really awesome for things to kind of come full circle and now be here on this conversation together. I really appreciate you guys joining. Frank from Cal Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, and Ophelia, of course, from a lot of different things that Ophelia you have going on. But I know the main thing that the main capacity I know you in is Asian Americans for Cannabis Education. So with that said, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you here. Thanks for being here. So. So the first thing I really want to do to kind of get things kicked off is just to ask the basic question about your respective organizations, the Cal Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce as well as AACE. Just kind of if you could give us just a brief overview of what these agencies are or these organizations are, especially regarding Asians in the cannabis industry. So let's start here with Ophelia. What?
Sorry, had to unmute myself. Because, as Asians, we just like to go on and on. So I had to self-mute there. Asian Americans for Cannabis Education. It's a mouthful, ACE, right? And so it kind of goes back to the pun of, ace your exams, good child, right? So in this tribute to overly ambitious parents, we called it ACE. So because they're the ones that don't want you to smoke weed. And ACE was started because we have, just like in every industry, when you walk into a room, there's a very, very small percentage of any minority, right? And even less so for cannabis. So ACE was started because of that I found there are even less of us in this, and for many reasons. of course, if you're an Asian person, you probably already know off the top of your head 10 of them, and 9 of them are your parents. And so it was created to give us a supportive network to get together and go, and sort of whinge on, I got to hide my job from my parents, but you're LinkedIn, you're working at where? 7-Eleven? Got to keep it that way. So even yesterday, I found someone who can't tell their parents. But anyhow, I'm going to go to Frank and tell you that ACE was started because there just ain't enough of us yellow faces out there. But there's a lot more. At the beginning, it was very hard. Now it's like, hey, I want to be on ACE. You want to talk about weed? Okay. So on to Frank.
Yeah, thanks, Ophelia. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Ophelia. I think it's been probably 6 or 7 years ago, and was inspired by what she had created and the work she had done, and it inspired me as well to really leverage and grow what we were doing here at CalAsian. And obviously, Mike had the pleasure of meeting you several years ago as well. So it's really unique. The CalAsian Chamber / Foundation. We also have a foundation. A lot of the cannabis education goes under that program. But just by the nature of who we are, we're the largest ethnic chamber in California, obviously with a mission to empower and enable the over 600,000 API businesses in California. But all of our programs, including cannabis, focus on diverse minority businesses, advocacy, policy, and business assistance. So, but at the Capitol, certainly for the diverse entrepreneurs, but at the Capitol, we definitely carry the flag on behalf of our Asian businesses and entrepreneurs in both the startup and large scale businesses throughout the state. We focus on all industries and have been very focused on all emerging industries. I saw cannabis in 2016 as an industry that was going to need a lot of education, roundtables, stakeholder meetings, getting regulators together, elected officials, and entrepreneurs who had never done that before. So that's where our program started in 2017, was to be an advocate for facilitating all that engagement, and then coming up with potential solutions to make the industry more effective. And we've done that in cannabis and energy and electrification and climate change. So almost every industry we lead in those ways, right? So that's a little bit about the CalAsian, and it's been fun, exciting, and ultra flexible in trying to navigate the cannabis industry, but on behalf of the entrepreneurs, trying to navigate on their behalf to help them move forward in starting a business, growing a business, or saving their business, right? You can name them all, right? Yeah. And that's a little bit about, yeah. And I'm the chief operating officer and run but also just my maybe history, passion, not afraid of cannabis, not unfamiliar with cannabis, kind of led those programs. And we'll get into this later, but around also normalization, right? Trying to integrate it into an organization like ours that is not a cannabis organization, right? So, there you have it, right?
Awesome.
Thank you to you both for building these great organizations. My next question is actually to both of you, and I'll bring it back to Ophelia. So right now we're in the midst of AAPI Heritage Month. What does that mean to you, particularly with regards to our industry, but also on a more personal level?
I wish it was more February, because then we could actually roll in Chinese New Year's into that month, because it's actually a celebration too, because just because they told me it's AAPI month, it doesn't really mean that much to me. It's just a month, basically, because Frank's work and my work and all of our work and Mike's and yours is year round. It's not, oh, hey, it's Asian month, gotta kick off all this stuff. And then it's the same old thing. It's just like similar to Mother's Day. Got to send mom a card, right? Now we got to send all our favorite Asians and put them on Instagram drinking whatever we're trying to sell. So it's nice that we have that focus, but really as we move forward, unless we have more political action, it's just a nice pat on the head for us. But because really, are we getting any benefits? Did we get like a discount at Hertz cars or something? I mean, so it's yes, it's a focus on Asian Americans, but what does it really mean? Why can't we do this all year round? So that's my rant. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ophelia, you definitely do it all year round, every day. Which is why you're so passionate and focused on these areas. And Kay, I'll respond on that question as well. I mean, I grew up in the technology space, but I grew up on really the sales and business development side, and amazingly, there weren't that many Asians doing that. I mean, literally, right? So in large corporate America. So I just remember I kind of carried that with me. I was very successful and had a great time, and it didn't create an issue for me. But it just would have been nice if to see more Asians getting into that role. And I've always carried that with me. And I've always been a supporter and engaged with entrepreneurships and startups and in predominantly tech and energy space, and there was never enough diversity, and engineers were always, I mean, the Asians were always the engineers and the accountants and the scientists, but they weren't on the front lines, and it always just kind of stuck with me, right? And until I joined the chamber almost 7 years ago, I wasn't really in a role to kind of give back and focus energy on that, and that's what I did. And it just so happened that the timing of when I joined the chamber in 2016 lined up with the launch of the cannabis space. And I said, we have to, do the same in the cannabis space, just like we would in technology or any other industry. So that's kind of how it started. I mean, to be honest with you. So, and I would say definitely AAPIs, but at the chamber, since we're more diverse than just Asians, it's really advocacy for diversity and inclusion with an emphasis on the Asians that may not have an understand and be comfortable with the pathways to get there. They just aren't traditionally out there. They aren't in front of lawmakers and their city council members and trying to influence regs and things like that. So it's education, right? It's about teaching them how to understand that that's how you move the dial, right? And being comfortable, or actually not even being comfortable, being comfortable with being uncomfortable in those situations. And I think a lot of the Asian entrepreneurs and workforce still are not there yet, right? As far as being out front and taking risks and being vocal, right? So,
Oh,
yeah, Ophelia.
I just want to add one thing because sorry, Kay, now I'm reading your full question for AAPI week for in our industry. I think the best thing we can do if this month is a focus month is focus on the leaders in cannabis who are Asian, AAPI, to show the on the fence Asians. Oh, they went to Columbia, West Point, Harvard, Yale, and they're in weed. Ha, Johnny Yu Jr., what about you? Right. So it is showing that these people, like say for instance, Stephen Jung of PAX, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite people in the world. The CRO, West Point, Columbia, Twitter, Weed Maps, now PAX, right? And also one of the hottest dudes I've ever met. He is also a captain in the Army. Holy crap. Walking into that room with him Stephen next to me, it's like, I tell people, I know him, so I can do this. I can touch him. See? And it's people like that is not only looks like Captain America, but also a very big proponent of cannabis and MSO. That's how we celebrate AAPI week, a month in cannabis, by putting people up that, and like Tiffany, so of Snoop Dogg, right? So that's what sorry, Kay, I glossed over your question.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ophelia. I think Ophelia does a great job. I try to highlight some of those because people will see their journey and their choice to enter into cannabis, their choice to take their skills and experience that are absolutely recognized and amazing, and they choose to apply it in this industry without fear of the backlash of that. And that's really where it starts, right? At least for the API executives, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's something that we honestly see common, I think, in a lot of the different minority or gold majority groups, right? The stigmatization that happens. And, just throw my 2 cents in on this. I think that, what affiliate, you brought up at the very beginning of this wheel around here. I don't even know when AAPI month started, honestly. Like, I think last year was the first year that I was aware of it. And I'm curious, and I keep meaning to look it up to see when did it start, how did it start, why did it start? My take on it when it initially came out, okay, me and you had a conversation about this is this just another marketing ploy? Is this another way that, companies that really actually don't care that much can just kind of, like have another marketing campaign that month? And what I've warmed up to personally is kind of like we were talking about Ophelia there, and Frank also on the normalization side of things,
Mhm.
and being able to like use it as a span of time where others maybe have a little bit more spotlight or paying attention a little bit more, and we can say, okay, here's leaders in the space, and we need to highlight the leaders in the space, to your point, because when people see leaders in the space, they go, oh, I could do that too. And oh, that's a similar background that I have, and I'd like to figure this out too. This is, I meet people all the time where cannabis was a passion of theirs, or plant medicine, or just creating something different. It was a passion of theirs, and being outside of the box, so to speak. And I think that if we can really highlight folks that are doing that already, like as you mentioned, the gentleman you mentioned, we had Peter Sue on here a couple weeks ago, also, with like, I think he got like 17 different certifications in the banking space. It shows that this is a legitimate thing, right? This is not just folks like myself that are coming from the legacy space, but also folks that are coming from, highly degreed professions, highly regulated other industries. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. And it's a good segue into the next question I have for Frank here. You've touched upon this, but the Cal Asian Chamber of Commerce is not a cannabis organization, right? It's been longstanding. It's a group of lots of other industries. To your point, with folks that are, maybe a lot of them even have that stigma against cannabis, and they're coming from spaces where maybe they're still even drug tested, and depending on what profession or field they're in. What has that experience been like for you to, and why is it so important? And how has it been like to have this cannabis division of the Cal Asian Chamber?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. But it truly, to me, it truly was about normalization and integrating it into the fabric of the business climate and community in the industry. It can't be a one-off, and it can't be a special circumstance, because if you enter in that way, it'll always be that way. Um, it's really interesting, Mike. The When I brought this, so think back of 2016, Prop 64. I remember coming to our president and CEO and the board of directors, saying I wanted to create these programs to help entrepreneurs, but also help regulators understand the space, get together, brainstorm, roundtable, benchmark other industries to create a reasonable industry in California. Now we have a long way to go, but it was on that approach. There was many people that were maybe obviously weren't for that, or others were neutral. And remember, our board is mostly corporate America, so they don't participate anyway. Well, they do, but they won't admit it, right? So if you're a phone company or a cell company or a computer company, you are participating, right? You have clients. Our utility companies were all big, they had lots of large clients. But it was a matter of education and being a resource to bring people together, and found that our connections at the legislator and the regulators allowed us to connect entrepreneurs they didn't know and would have never met if we didn't bring them together. So to me, it was normalization of, I'll do it respectfully and safely and not get the chamber in trouble, so to speak. And it's been a great journey from that platform, right? And since we've launched, business assistance, technical assistance, we have a social equity incubator to help launch businesses, and we've launched many licensed businesses with social equity entrepreneurs. We would have never been able to do that without, the support of the chamber saying, yes, we should help minority entrepreneurs. And yes, because it's legal in California, we shouldn't exclude that industry. And that was the first kind of transition to normalization. It's not there yet. We still get a little tension, but it's allowed. Let's put it that way, right? So yeah.
That's huge right there. What you just said, I think, is that it took the resources of the mainstream, right? The mainstream resources to really help stand things up. And we do see this where people come from mainstream industries into cannabis. But I think that what you're talking about an organization with its resources coming into cannabis. And I think that's a whole nother level from what we've really been seeing for the most part. Yeah.
Absolutely. So our policy efforts, the connections we have with local jurisdictions and leaders in those jurisdictions, it all was valuable to help move the dial, right? Along with many others. I mean, the chamber was just one of those unique kind of one-offs that wasn't a cannabis industry association. And I think it was valuable, to be honest with you. I felt, Ophelia, we've chatted about this. I felt like I could get into a room or meet with certain people that I was in there because I was the Cal Asian Chamber, not a cannabis association. It actually maybe opened some doors that wouldn't have otherwise been opened. It wasn't intentional that way. It worked out that way, right? Yeah. So
excellent. One of the things that I've been thinking about lately, from an NCAA perspective, is I've been having these conversations with, let's talk about other trade associations from there's, the Realtors Trade Association, there's the Insurance Trade Association. These are mainstream trade associations that are now adding cannabis programming to some of their conferences or their Zooms or whatever it may be. I think you're onto something here, Frank.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Long way to go, and a lot of effort needs to still go into aggressively integrating it and normalizing it, right? And then that's why Ophelia's work has been so great, because it's about people, it's about Asians certainly, but it's really about just being visible enough and talking about it enough to make it a normal business conversation, right? Not a one-off kind of secret discussion, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Not just something in the cannabis closet, right?
Exactly.
So, speaking of normalization and the closets that kind of exist in this plant medicine world, Kay, I know you have a question that you wanted to throw out here. I think towards Ophelia, but I don't want to take the words out of your mouth.
Yeah, so we just to kind of switch things up over here. Ophelia, what is next in the realm of psychedelics?
Psychedelics? Loads of
do you have
stuff.
any advice you have for folks looking to jump into from cannabis to psychedelics?
I'm going to mute myself just because you can hear this truck coming up. Sorry, I'm in a neighborhood that people are constantly renovating. So, psychedelics. Well, okay, going back to that 1.5 grant, that's not a lot, especially if it's going to be chopped up in little chunks, right? Because we all know how much a trial costs. And if we're going to talk on the subject of psychedelics in Asians, it's going to be very interesting because it is not seen in the same bucket as cannabis, right? And it has a long history in a traditional Chinese medicine cabinet, right? Because only since 1960, I think 1960, 62, we've been not allowed to use, because of Schedule 1 UN. As Mike knows, basically psilocybin and cannabis, which are two ingredients in the Chinese medicine cabinet, TCM, and been using that for 5,000 years. The last 50, 60 years so far, it's been wiped off, right? So that's going to be interesting because we have 5,000 years of history with that, but yet only 60 years of prohibition. But it is the last two generations. So how do we change that generation's minds? I have found that with psychedelics, the client group usage in the data is mostly over 40, right? 40 and up. They're not seen as recreational. And that is, again, breaking down to general population, whites, Asians, African Americans, the same amount. But they're using it for a different reason. And that's how we can approach it with education on psychedelics is PTSD, trauma, shame spiraling. All that is very embedded in Asian culture. We shame our children. We put them under a lot of pressure, a lot of trauma, a lot of domestic and abuse, right? You're not getting your grade. This has happened. It happens. And so we work with a lot of Asian Americans who have gone through that trauma. So the acceptance of psychedelics is going to be very different than the acceptance of cannabis on that side, because once they see Asians see a doctor is going to prescribe it because that's where it's going to go, it's all of a sudden it's flipped in their mind. Hey, it's not a drug, it's a drug, not a drug, it's a drug that I'm going to get a script for. So then that flips in the Asian American mind. So that's okay. So that's the answer for psychedelics in Asians. Once your grandma sees her doctor write that prescription out, hell yeah, it's okay, right? But that $1.5 million is not going to go very far.
Right. And that's where, again, it's almost like circling back here. And I think that's why it's interesting to see the psychedelics space kind of developing now, and maybe we can learn some of the lessons from the cannabis space to Frank's point with normalization, but maybe it doesn't have, it sounds like, as far with normalization to go as cannabis did. But we can still learn from some of those lessons, so it still is a smoother process than it would be otherwise. So yeah, no, awesome. Let's see, make sure that I got a couple of things here I definitely want to make sure to ask you all about. I mentioned lobby days earlier, so I definitely will be remiss to not bring this up, especially Ophelia. I'm pretty sure you're still on the board of the USCC, if I'm not mistaken. Congratulations for that. That's a pretty awesome. When I saw that announced, I think it was last year, I was like, wow, that's amazing. We have some solid representation within a very important board now. With that said, our two organizations were part of a recent letter to the Senate Banking Committee and on safe banking, right? About, hey, the importance of safe banking and the legitimacy, and that this is all of the trade, not all of the trade associations, but some of the major national trade associations coming together to agree about this. Can you tell us a little bit about, what are some of, the legislative priorities that you also are seeing through USCC that are coming out? Is safe banking, is that the main thing you guys are working on? Like, what's going on with USCC on this side of things?
Well, now we have a new leadership, so we're moving towards weekly governing meetings on Tuesday. So a lot more of us are more informed about what's going on. And we have Ed Conklin now as our executive director. Very amazing. I mean, everyone before that, of course, was just equally amazing. I always like a little leadership shift because sometimes they bring something new. So basically, you probably already know this. This is from Ed. But they are, once it's out voted at a committee, hopefully Schumer will then find a time to be considered on the floor, right? So that is what it is working for it. And also the vote could occur in Congress, but it'd be July, October. But with this Congress, Mike, who knows, right? It's a wild you could have someone that you never thought wanted cannabis all of a sudden pop up for it. This is it's so all over the place. But really it's not just safe banking, it's 280E. That is killing everybody. And New York is going to find that out, right? New Jersey, good for them, statewide, no 280E, right? But New York is going to discover that too, and we're going to come up on more brands that's dying by the wayside, and within a year we're going to see a lot of that, and retail as well.
And just throw us in here so that folks that are listening are aware, when we say no 280E at the state level, it still means those businesses still have to pay 280E or pay the taxes that are associated with 280E at the federal level. It just means they do get some kind of a break at the state level from New Jersey. A couple other states have come online with that too. So, definitely the right direction, but we still need that federal reform as well. I think it's Small Business Tax Equity Act is the new act that's been introduced in the last couple of weeks. I can't remember the bill number, but that's the name of the bill. It was introduced just a couple of weeks ago, and that would have helped resolve this whole 280E mess that would allow cannabis businesses to be taxed like any other business, not triple, quadruple, or even quintuple times the tax burden on top of having to deal with everything else it means to be a cannabis business and starting out in a new industry. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah, because the brands and distributors are all now hiring collection agencies, right? In the last 3 months, all the major ones. And that means not only on the store retail level, everyone's going to get squeezed from every side, right? And there's no way of getting at it, because the cheapest loan you can get right now is not paying your 280E. It's only 6%. That is the cheapest loan you can have. So there's some businesses thinking we're just going to protest and not pay it because really we're only 6% on that. It's cheaper than a loan. So there are some businesses considering joining together to basically boycott 280E and just bank that 6%.
Okay. That's an interesting strategy, and we'll see how that plays out when with the federal government. But yeah, absolutely. Frank, you have anything to add on this kind of stuff? I know that Cali's and Chamber doesn't actually work on the federal level in that way, but
Yeah, not on the federal, but
foreseen?
just to build on, I mean, it's so critical, banking and taxes, right? I mean, if we don't fix that, it's going to be a challenge constantly, right? So I think businesses will, go extinct because of a lot of those reasons, and we have to do something, certainly as much as we can at the state level, but certainly the advocacy for that you and Ophelia lead on the federal level is so important, right? Some kind of relief, right, in some way, shape, or form. And I think, to Ophelia's point around, the supply chain and the kind of like this impending, backlog of accounts payable, backlog. I mean, it's a major issue, and you're starting to see legislation, in California, right, that's being proposed to try to address that or resolve that or delay that or suspend it. I mean, all the above. Everyone's looking for ways, and I think if we don't, we're going to see some other, larger businesses, especially go out or leave the state, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
On
And I
that
know it's
topic, yeah,
already killing a lot of the small businesses, right? A lot of these
for
small
sure.
businesses are really just
Okay.
struggling to just keep their doors open.
Yeah,
How do we say cure a leaf?
yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, no doubt. The large ones have the ability to pivot and leave, but Mike, to your point, the small businesses we're helping, they're never going to launch if So if we've been working with them for 3 or 4 years now, and now this is hitting the industry, when do they get to start their journey, right? They may not,
Right.
which is even, maybe more sad, right? In that case.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further than sad. It's really despicable, I think, that we've created this industry in multiple states and said to folks, hey, if you've been justice involved, impacted, whatever it is, we'll get you to the front of the line with the licensing.
That's right.
And then, okay, but we know that on the back end, the odds of you actually launching that business after spending 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of your family's money and your time and all your family's stress and energy
Yep.
into it, we know that at the end of that, you're still not going to be able to stand up. Oh, by the way, federal legalization will come a few years later, and we'll go ahead and open the doors up at that point to everybody. So anyway, that's my soapbox there for a second. I know that it's something that, we're all passionate about, which is why we're here in the 1st place, is making sure that the small businesses, and especially the social equity, tag businesses are able to succeed. With that said, though, let's go ahead and we're going to take a break here in a second. And when we come back, we got our Canna Quiz, which is our game that we play here every week. No, don't worry, Ophelia, you can't have studied for it, so you didn't. You can still fail, but you don't have the pressure of having been able to study for it ahead of time. So we'll come back in just a minute, and we'll see how Frank and Ophelia do on that. So Vince, take us away.
Well, here at the National Cannabis Industry Association, we have proudly represented small businesses across the cannabis industry since 2010. We represent Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. We have come so far in this fight to legalize cannabis that it seems that it's almost inevitable, and we're the ones making sure that as those rules are written, they favor small businesses, mom and pop operators, and Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. In addition to making sure that your voice is heard at the federal level, being a member of NCIA also means building a vibrant community of small business owners within the cannabis space. Because we can always learn so much better by working together, learning from our mistakes and our successes, and building this industry together. So if you're interested in making sure that small businesses and Main Street cannabis has a seat at the table, be sure to join NCIA at thecannabisindustry.org.
All right, welcome back. So before we go into our Canna quiz game. Just one last question for both of you. So, what are the other priorities or initiatives that are coming up for AAC and CalAsian?
I'll see you later.
For ACE, we are now a nonprofit. Okay, yeah, I'm slow. Okay, because it's been self-funded since 2015. Someone said you better be a nonprofit. All right, okay, I'll be a nonprofit. So now I'm nonprofit, but also we've been putting on potlucks, which is local events. We started with 48 people. Now we get an average about 240. The next one I'm working on, I want to give everyone a room. This place has 19 karaoke rooms and a big bar and LED screens in the bar. It's a private space in El Monte, which is a heart of Chineseville. So then CA can have a room, karaoke room dedicated to you. CalAsian can, and then brands can for free have each because then that way you're able to go into a room, talk to people, sing a stupid song, and get really wasted with weed. Sorry, did I say that? And just build partnerships, because that's an easier way of doing it than across from a sterile desk drinking Starbucks coffee, right? Stupid songs, the Bee Gees, weed, and have you heard of NCIA? Well, yeah. Oh, tell me, right? So that's what's up for ACE right now. And
when is this? When is this happening?
Soon, because I'm gonna go take a look at the place. Whoop whoop. Yeah. So I will get on it, Mike.
Don't forget to send us an invite.
Yeah.
And get your playlist together for that karaoke room. Yacht Rock, I'm saying, is the winner. All right.
There you go.
Frank, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ophelia. Always look forward to your events and some fun approach. So which is why we love you so much, right? So CalAsian. So I mean, I know Mike and Ophelia know this, but in 2018 we launched our California Grow Green Incubator Program. It was direct technical assistance and business assistance for social equity entrepreneurs and API entrepreneurs throughout the state of California. So we've worked with the city of Sacramento, the city of LA's business licensing compliance group with DCR. We just launched the city of San Jose. We call it the CEBA program, Cannabis Equity Business Academy, to help social equity entrepreneurs get ready for 10 new retail licenses in San Jose. And then we also, a couple months ago, launched the GET program with the County of Monterey, which is Growing Equity Together, which is to help focus predominantly on some of these legacy farmers to launch these outdoor grow projects. Pretty interesting. I mean, it's a steep hill to climb, but at least an opportunity, and many others. And then we continue our Cannabis Talks roundtable series. And as Ophelia mentioned earlier, we do have one. So again, we do these all every quarter, but we do kind of focus on AAPI leaders, and we're going to do one on May 31st. And like you said, Ophelia, we've got Arden Lee from Weed Maps and Peter Tang, Plug Play, Angela Pai with State House, Tiffany Chin, Death Row Cannabis, and Hua from Meadow. And then Charmaine Chua, who now works for Stephen over at PAX. So like another pivot, and as people try to navigate their own leadership journey for what I think are amazing Asian entrepreneurs and executives in the space, right? So that'll be May 31st. I'll share that with you, Mike and Kay, and you can distribute in your network and Ophelia as well. So looking forward to all of the above, right?
Excellent. I remember last year you guys had a similar conversation at AAPI month, and I remember it was a great conversation. So looking forward to see this one as well. And congratulations on San Jose and Monterey. I know you've been working on those for a while, so that's awesome. Great stuff. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll reach out to all of you for help.
Right on.
How do like we said? How do we? Ophelia's always been great, and you finding me people and the right resources, Mike yourself. But how do we help these entrepreneurs, who are all minority entrepreneurs, navigate and launch a business? Literally, we've launched many, which is great. Now we have to keep them in business. But now here's a whole nother set of new entrepreneurs
Yeah.
They're on a journey, on a rough journey, right? So
Absolutely. It's a never-ending journey.
Yep.
And that's why it's important to do things that are lighthearted, like our Canada quiz right here.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
Canada quiz, the way it works, it's a multiple choice. Basically, there's two questions. We'll ask Ophelia, we'll ask Frank. Each of you gets to weigh in, and then we'll go do the second question. So I'll lead off with the first question here. First question is, let's see here now. Cannabis legalization has been full steam ahead, coast to coast, for a decade now. Let's look back at when prohibition still ruled the states, though. What was the first state to formally outlaw cannabis? Let's see. Is that the right question, Vince? I've got the right one, right?
Outlaw?
Okay, cool. All right. So, which was the first state to formally outlaw cannabis? Was it Texas, Virginia, Massachusetts, or California? Texas, Virginia, Massachusetts, or California? Which one was the first to formally outlaw cannabis?
Texas?
Okay.
Virginia.
We got Texas, we got Virginia, and somewhat ironically, California was the first state that banned cannabis over a century ago.
I was going to say California, but that was sounded too easy.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I failed biology and chemistry.
Yeah.
Oh God.
The outlawed of it didn't stop anybody, I guess. Maybe that was what blurred my answer, right?
It also kind of makes you wonder about what was the nefarious 100-year plan going on there, which, we look now, we see, okay, they're legalizing it, one of the first states to legalize it, and it's not exactly anyway, I'm gonna keep those soapboxes away for the moment. But Kay, what do you got for number two? I think you got question number two lined up, right?
All right, you have another chance to redeem yourselves. So looking ahead from prohibition to when we see the United States follow in the footsteps of the individual states and our neighbor to the north, Canada, which was the first country to nationally legalize the sale of cannabis. Was it Canada, Uruguay, Paraguay, or Israel?
Oh, damn.
Which was the first country to nationally legalize the sale of cannabis? Canada, Uruguay, Paraguay, or Israel?
I'm going to say Uruguay, only because it's got a U in it.
I'll say Israel. Canada's too easy. I'll say Israel.
Right, so Ophelia got it right. In 2015, the first country in the world to make cannabis legal to grow and consume was Uruguay.
Wow, that's great.
U for uterus.
So
there you go.
That's going to take us through the future questions on the Canada quiz. We'll look at U for uterus.
It told me the answer.
It was the winning strategy today. So there you go.
I was automatically excluded then, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because the first question is said the C one. So never mind. That's a hard joke to get. I won't say it.
All right, so look, no, this was a great conversation. It's really great to share the space with really such amazing leaders in the space. I mean, Ophelia, you mentioned that ACE was self-funded for how many years before now you're founding a nonprofit. That's because it shows the true passion and belief that you've had in what you're doing, and it's just a service to all of us in the industry, especially those of us in the Asians that are in the space. So thank you so much for being here. Frank, I mean, look, blazing some trails at an organization, at an association that is, has, I'm sure, a lot of stigmas there. I can only imagine that, as much as they may be friendly to it and open to it, there's still got to be a lot of walls you got to break down. So thank you so much for trailblazing, absolutely. So look, I want to say here before we close out, this is the end of season 4. Kay, I want to thank you for being one of my great co-hosts here for the last couple of months here. It's been really awesome. Chris Jackson has been a co-host here. I think Michael Webster was a co-host here season 4. I don't want to get emotional here, but it's the end of season 4 here. Vince, I want to say, Vince, I appreciate and love you, man. You've been such an amazing asset to, this organization, to this movement, really, I think is the way I would put it. You've been just such a leader behind the scenes. I don't think most people even know what you look like, and you do it without all the thanks out there. And it's I don't know what's going to happen with season 5. I know that my preference, of course, would be to figure out a way to do this with you and continue to do this with you, whether it's on NCA's platform or somewhere else. But I know that, it's just been a true honor and a pleasure to really have your guidance and your leadership. You've helped me out tremendously with figuring out how to get my voice right and my voice going. I know you've helped a lot of other people that have come onto the show as guests who were nervous, and you helped set this tone and making sure everybody feels safe and welcome and warm. And you've always put, diversity, equity, inclusion, whatever we want to call these catchphrases, the real social justice, whatever you want to call it, like at the forefront of everything you do at the organization, on the show. Like I said, I don't want to get too emotional, but I'm really going to miss being able to work with you in this capacity, man. And, a lot of people owe a lot to you for the work you've done. And, I love you, man. So just want to say that. Yeah. So anyway, with that said, this has been a great episode. Another great way to start the week, a great way to wrap the season. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And what is that? What do I see a picture of here? Oh, wow. Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Beautiful artwork behind you and in front of you, Ophelia. You have just amazing artwork everywhere. It's incredible. Before we started, you had the camera turned the other direction. You had all these beautiful paintings on there celebrating Asian culture and art. So look, everybody listening, thank you so much for being here with us and continue this journey. We're going to continue this journey in some capacities with you all. So stay plugged in and we'll continue this out. So thank you so much. The Cannabis Minority Report. Everybody have a great one. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mike. Hey, Vince,
Bye, everyone.
Ophelia.
Thank you.
Great to see y'all.
The Cannabis Minority Report is a production of the National Cannabis Industry Association. We are hosted each week by Mike Lomuto, and we were joined this week as co-host by Kay Villamin. Directed by Vince Chandler. Our producers are Bethany Moore and Aaron Smith, and our executive producers are Vince Chandler and Mike Lomuto.